Donald Trump continues to be a global embarrassment. Whilst it's no secret he's tangled in legal scandals and dripping with corruption, what stands out more than anything is just how utterly pathetic his public behaviour is. Every time he's done one of his signature meltdowns, it's not just disgraceful, it's humiliating for the entire country. Now, his most recent humiliation came during an Oval Office meeting with Mark Carney, where Trump once again peddled one of his absurd, thoroughly debunked lies. Carney, to his credit, shut him down swiftly and decisively, leaving Trump failing in yet another self-inflicted disaster. We'll unpack exactly how it unravelled, but before we do, please do drop a like and subscribe if you're part of the growing wave that refuses to stay silent. Every click helps this truth reach the people who need to hear it. Now let's look at how Trump kicked things off by launching baseless attacks against Canada and the Canadian auto industry, setting the stage for yet another diplomatic embarrassment.
Canadians are refusing to go to the U.S. The numbers are down like 23% in the first 7 months of the year. What do you say to Canadians that don't want to go to the U.S. now because of your 51st state talk, because of the trade war, the tariffs?
Yeah,
and
well,
fear
I understand that. Look, I understand that, and Americans don't want to buy cars that are made in Canada. You know, I mean, we have the same conflict. So there isn't. It's something that will get worked out. There's still great love between the two countries, but you know, American people want product here. They want to make it here. Detroit was emptied out and moved to Canada, moved to Mexico, moved to other places, not just Canada. And now they're all moving back, you know, they're moving back. We have, right now, I was just telling Mark, we have 17 trillion, but it's really much higher. That was as of a couple of months ago. Yeah. We have over $17 trillion being invested now in the United States.
If you happen to work in tourism, say in states like Minnesota, Michigan or Florida, you've probably noticed something troubling. Canadians aren't just visiting the US like they used to. And a huge part of the blame lies with Donald Trump. His reckless behaviour and constant humiliation of the country on the international stage have damaged America's image so badly that many foreigners now want to have nothing to do with the Americans, you know. And let's be real, with the way things are going, you wouldn't be shocked if Trump's authoritarian leaning loyalists started screaming returning citizens for wrongthink. Remember that absurd incident where someone was reportedly stopped at the border just because they had a photo of JD Vance on their phone? And not even in a critical context, no crime committed, nothing illegal, just a photo. You know, it's the kind of petty paranoid nonsense that's becoming more believable in Trump's America, unfortunately. Now, is this his twisted idea of an economic plan? You know, trash talk your neighbours to boost tourism? It's hard to believe, isn't there? You know, there's any real strategy behind it. Just empty bluster from a man whose thought process seems as coherent as a scrambled, you know, lay-right rant.
Sir?
Sir, on China, what more can the United States and Canada do together to counter China?
Well, you have to be able to compete. They're a great competitor, and Mark and I both know that, and you have to be able to compete. We have big advantages over China for lots of different reasons, and I think we're doing very well with China. I get along very well with President Xi. I'm going to be meeting him in a few weeks, as you know. I'll be meeting him in South Korea, but we've had a very good relationship for a long time. But you have to be able to compete. To do well with China, if you can't compete, you're not going to do well with China. And Canada is very competitive. I can tell you that. Canada is a very competitive country. And I think Canada's done very well over the years with China.
Yeah, we have. But we'll do better together on that.
Can anyone actually make sense of what Trump was rumbling about? You know, he throws out vague slogans like, we've got to compete and everyone knows and loves me. But none of it actually adds up to a coherent policy or strategy. Compete with who exactly? Because based on his actions, Trump, you know, seems to think that our allies, the very countries that have stood by us through decades of cooperation, are the enemy. You know, he clearly has no grasp of diplomacy, you know, in his favourite, no understanding of international relations and no real friends aside from people like Jeff, you know, whose absence he bizarrely laments, you know, as if some tragic personal loss. Meanwhile, the rest of us are left wondering what the plan is, if there actually even is one. So when it comes to world leaders, Trump reserves, his warmth for authoritarian strongmen like Putin and Xi. He's all about appeasement and flattery when dealing with them guys. We need to be kind, he'd say about them. We need to bring about them to the table. But the second he starts talking about democratic allies like Canada, France, or the UK, the tone kind of shifts. It comes to threats and punishment. They're going to pay, it's going to hurt. Why are, these are our partners, and yet Trump seems more interested in alienating them than strengthening those alliances. His chaotic trade policies, especially the tariff games, a little more than a smokescreen for the grift. It's always been about enriching himself and his inner circle, whether that's through shady business deals, political coin schemes, or cozying up to foreign governments for personal gain. He doesn't want diplomacy, he just wants domination, or at least, the appearance of it, to prop up his paper-thin, tough guy persona. Now, this obsession with projecting fake strength is why he keeps making outrageous comments about countries like Canada, only to get publicly humiliated when someone smarter like Mark Carney calls him out. Trump's foreign policy isn't based on strategy. It's based on ego, resentment, and a desperate need to look powerful, even if it means turning America into a laughingstock in the process.
Azerbaijan, Armenia, disabling Iran as a force of terror, and now, and I'm running out of time, but this is many respects the most important.
The merger of Canada and the United States.
That wasn't where it was going.
Trump's fantasy of some grand US-Canada merger, yeah, that's never going to happen, is it, guys? Donald is delusional. Mark Carney, one of the few adults in the room during the Trump's presidency, has mastered the art of shutting him down with calm, blunt precision. Every time Carney has to deal with Trump in the White House, it's been the same routine. Trump floats some absurd, arrogant idea, and Carney quickly dismantles it without even breaking a sweat. Now, you might remember the first time Carney confronted him in the Oval Office. It was unforgettable. Carney flat out said, "Let me be crystal clear. Canada is not for sale, and we're not going to tolerate this nonsense." Trump, visibly, deflated, tried to play it off with his usual non-committal blabber, but Carney wasn't having it. He shut it down hard, and at that moment became a blueprint for how leaders should handle Trump. Not to pander his ego, just tell the truth and hold your ground. Now, of course, Trump never wanted to handle rejection or reality particularly well. He immediately shifted gears. Humiliated and exposed, he pivoted to safer ground where, he thinks he can project dominance. The culture wars, that's his go-to move when his policy failures and diplomatic ignorance catch up with him. When he can't, win on facts or strategy, he kind of leans into division and predictability, starts with targeting vulnerable communities. This pattern says it all. When confronted by strong, principled leaders, Trump retreats into, inflammatory rhetoric and empty bravado. Now, that's not strength, that's cowardice.
We have no men and women's sports. Basic things. We're not going to take your child away and change the sex of your child. We're not going to do things like that. What they're doing to the country is so incredible. And they got away with it with all their woke crap, and now it's stopped.
We're witnessing a complete cognitive collapse in real time. Donald Trump appears to be spiraling, lashing out without reason, most recently targeting the trans community with baseless and harmful rhetoric. It's not grounded in fact, it's manufactured hate meant to, rile up his base at this point. Trump comes across as a deeply unwell, bitter old man clinging to relevance by pushing, vile narratives. He behaves like something far removed from reality, surrounded by, enablers who, coddle him with fast food and flatteringly inflating his ego while he descends further into delusion. The whole thing resembles a parody of leadership, more like a retirement home fantasy than a functioning political force.
I'm getting calls from Democrats wanting to meet. I never even heard their names before. and they're claiming to be leaders. The Democrats have no leader. They remind me of Somalia, okay? You know, and I met the president of Somalia. I told him about the problem he's got. I said, you have somebody from Somalia who's telling us how to run our country. She's from Somalia. He said, would you like to take her back? He said, no, I don't want her. Okay, you know who I'm talking about?
You can practically see him begging for validation like a child desperate for a pat on the head. This is no accomplishment, it's routine diplomacy. You're not a toddler bringing home a finger painting. Meeting world leaders is literally part of the job. It's the same cringeworthy energy we see when Trump's loyalists post photos of every TV screen broadcasting, one of his speeches as basic media coverage is some rare feat. It's not. It's constantly chasing praise. He clearly never got growing up, and it shows, clearly. Now, this hunger for approval reeks of insecurity, and the cracks are visible, not just in his public persona, but in his numbers. His polls is sliding, and his mounting legal defeats only make it worse. As Rachel Maddow recently laid out, Trump isn't projecting strength, he's unraveling.
That same judge in an emergency hearing late last night told the Trump administration in no uncertain terms that they were obviously trying to defy her order, and they were not allowed to do that. And I say no uncertain terms. Now I will show you what I mean. The judge, Mr. Hamilton, let me ask you, how could bringing in federalized National Guard in California not be in direct contravention of the restraining order I issued yesterday? Trump administration lawyer, Mr. Hamilton. The restraining order issued yesterday, paragraph 1 of it, enjoined implementation of Secretary Hegseth's order to the Oregon National Guard. And this is the judge. Mr. Hamilton, you are an officer of the court. Aren't defendants simply circumventing my order, which relies on the conditions in Portland? Nothing has changed. There's nothing in my order that has changed. Trump administration lawyer. No, Your Honor. The judge. So why is this appropriate? Trump administration lawyer. Well, the reason is that the California National Guard were federalized under a different presidential memorandum. The judge, Mr. Hamilton, you are missing the point, because here it's the conditions on the ground in Oregon that were the basis for my finding that there was not a legal basis to bring federalized National Guard into Oregon. Is there any legal authority for federalizing National Guard for one purpose, that is to help California, and then to divert them to another purpose in a different state, where there's no showing that that is military help that is necessary to assist law enforcement or to protect law enforcement or the one federal building here for ICE? Trump administration lawyer. Well, the judge, is there any legal authority for what you are doing? Trump administration lawyer. Well, this section of the U.S. Code, section 12406, has not been utilized any time in history. So there are not many previous precedents from the use of this authority. But the judge, tell me, why do you think it has not been utilized? Trump administration lawyer, I can't speak to that. The judge, Mr. Hamilton. So again, if it were the case that you could federalize National Guard in one place and simply send them to a place where the president doesn't have authority to federalize the National Guard, then what would the purpose of this section of the U.S. Code be? You have to have a colorable claim that Oregon conditions require it, but you don't. We have already gone over that. So why is this appropriate? Trump administration lawyer. Well, again, no additional California guardsmen were federalized. They were instead relocated from California to the state of Oregon. And the judge. So are they federalized or are they not? Trump administration lawyer. They are federalized, but new guardsmen were not federalized. 200 already federalized California guardsmen were relocated to the state of Oregon. The judge. Let me ask you, Mr. Hamilton. You're an officer of the court. Do you believe that this is an appropriate way to deal with my order or an order that a judge issues that you disagree with? Or is the appropriate mechanism to appeal? Trump administration lawyer. Well, I'm not a policymaker, but the judge. You're a lawyer. That's how it's going for the Trump administration in court in trying to send in the troops to Oregon. We'll see how it goes in Illinois, right? I mean, Trump does not seem to have the law on his side on this matter. He does not seem to have the people on his side. He does not seem to have the politics on his side. And so what he has is just force.
I know I say this a lot, and if you're tired of hearing it, let me know, but it still needs to be said. Donald Trump wants you to believe he's unbeatable. That's his whole act. He wants you to think resistance is pointless, and no matter the outcome, lawsuit, election, investigation, he'll come out on top. And when things don't go his way, he just pretends they don't matter. But here's the truth, guys. Trump is not above the law, not yet anyway. He may fantasize about being a dictator, but that only becomes reality if we start treating him like one. That's the trap he feeds on, defeatism, you know, on people checking out and assuming nothing can change. He wants us to give up. He needs us to be passive and hopeless. That's his fuel. But we can't afford to play into that, can we? We can't take the easy road of silence or apathy. What we need to do is fight back louder and tougher, and yes, dirty if that's what it takes. You know, we can't stay clean whilst he's dragging the entire political system through the gutter. So get in the fight, and that's what we're doing this for on this channel every day. And as always, guys, please do make sure to smash that subscribe button. Drop a like on the video if you made it all the way to the end. Please leave a blue heart in the comments to show you're standing strong and refusing to be silenced. I'll see you on the next one.